Ayo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. Y'all, Spider-Man has been in a weird place for the past like 5 years. Some people will tell you it's been the past like 15 years, something like that, ever since One More Day. I'm gonna be completely honest. I loved Brand New Day. I loved Big Time, but after that, I feel like Static has kind of been in a strange flux. This is my first Spider-Man video. I recorded one like a while ago and I never posted it just because I wasn't happy with it. And I wasn't happy with it, just genuinely. I just wasn't. But when I saw 8 Deaths of Spider-Man coming out, I was like, you know what? This wasn't my opportunity to talk about the character. And ever since One More Day, ever since Brand New Day, Spider-Man has kind of been in a weird state where the comics have just not been enough. Personally, I hate One More Day. If you don't know what One More Day is, it's essentially a comic book where Marvel broke up MJ and Peter Parker. Peter basically made a deal with the devil, Mephisto, to bring his Aunt May back, and in turn, this would annul his marriage with MJ. It was a strange like event. Looking back, I know why. Of course, it's to preserve the youth of Spider-Man, I guess. I don't know. I'm not gonna talk about One More Day too much. I love Brand New Day though. I think in a vacuum, Brand New Day works as this like modern sort of take on a young 25-year-old like Spider-Man. If you just wanted a run where Spider-Man is 25 years old and it's basically like building his life and his, seeing his life through that lens in a modern take. It's modern. That's I need to emphasize. It's the fact that it's modern. That's a really good Spider-Man run to read. I'm gonna be quite honest. If you never read a Spider-Man comic, like a lot of people love Brand New Day because that's the one they grew up on. I love Stan Lee and John Romita Sr.'s run. I love Roger Stern and John Romita Jr.'s run. I love Gary Conway and Gil Kane's run. I love even Tom DeFalco's run. Like, it's not that I prefer one over the other, but I do think like Brand New Day is a really good like intro sort of, because a lot of those are old. Some people don't want to read like exposition every single issue. This is the one to go to. Big Time is also really fucking good by Dan Slott. Over 15 years later, the title has switched hands quite a few times. Dan Slott was predominantly the writer of the character basically from, I want to say 2009 or 2011 up until 2017. Yeah, 2017. So he had the character for about 6 years. He wrote an abundant of issues. Like, he is one of the writers that has written the most Spider-Man comics. Even his run, some people hate his run entirely. I think they are just viewing it in a very in bad faith. A lot of his run is really good. Big Time is amazing. A lot of his Brand New Day issues are actually honestly some of the best Brand New Day issues. Worldwide is okay. The ending is amazing though. The ending is some of the best Spider-Man comics ever written. I absolutely did skip over Spider-Verse and the 2013 series that came out. That was kind of like the relaunch after Superior Spider-Man. That shit sucked. I'm gonna be quite honest. The Sidney Moon stuff, that sucked. The Superior Spider-Man also amazing as well. Dan Slott had his hands on this title for quite some time, and finally he ended his run, and Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley took over this title. They would run the title along with Patrick Gleason and Mark Bagley for a few issues. Nick Spencer would run this title as well for, I think it was about like 75 issues, something like that. That would end, and then you would get this thing called Spider-Man Beyond. And this was the first of two cases where after the end of a Spider-Man run, you would have another run on the same volume of Spider-Man. To explain volume, if you're new to comics, basically every time a title is relaunched, that's a new volume, right? So this was the Amazing Spider-Man 2018 volume. I know we also have trade paperback volumes, not the same thing. That is the only confusing thing about comics. But basically on the 2018 run, you had issues after Nick Spencer left. It continued 76, 77, 78 and onwards until Spider-Man Beyond ended. Spider-Man Beyond was basically bringing back Ben Reilly, having him work for Beyond Corp, which was this story is convoluted. I'm gonna be quite honest. It was really good at first. I really did like the fact that Ben Reilly came back, was trying to be this corporate superhero. It was really like critiquing corporations and critiquing consumerism and all that kind of stuff, and how corporations shape the news and everything like that. A really good idea and for bringing back Ben Reilly, who was this clone who really wanted to prove himself. And I wish it would have gone differently, but it did end very poorly. And it ended with Peter Parker and MJ basically wanting to settle down again and get back together officially. This then would lean into Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run. Inarguably, the most polarizing Amazing Spider-Man run ever. I mean it, because you either absolutely, I don't even say that, you either like enjoy this comic run, or you see people emphatically hate it for the dumbest reasons. I'm going to like, that is just my perspective. I feel like a lot of the hate towards this run is unfounded, or at least they don't put the hate towards the correct things. I enjoyed a lot of Zeb Wells' Spider-Man run. I think where it fails pretty hard. And I feel like you can tell when Zeb Wells wasn't writing a plot that he wanted to write, like Dead Language. That's one where you could tell he did not want to do that. Or even like a little bit of Gang War, but I think Gang War was built up from what he was trying to do with Tombstone, but you can tell he really just wanted to do this Tombstone like saga. And this run goes off the rails. Dark Web was another event that was like, you can tell he did not want to do this, but because we had Ben Reilly come back and all that kind of stuff, and he was a lingering plot point, whatever. Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run was the latest run to end and then have like another writer and creative team come in to finish out this 2022 like series basically. So issue 60 ended. That was the end of Zeb Wells' run, and 61 started with Joe Kelly, Ed McGuinness, and Marcio Moniz, and they did 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. And this is where this video is coming from. I don't know what Marvel's really doing with this idea to do like a bridge story from the end of a previous writer's Amazing Spider-Man run, and then having that be like a 10 issue like story and then relaunching after that. I'm not really sure like what the thought process is for that. It's a very strange like marketing plan for them to do, but whatever. Basically at this point, Marvel has been running through the Spidey Brain Trust that was running the Brand New Day run, and they're giving every writer there that has written a run. So Dan Slott had his own run, Zeb Wells had his own run. Nick Spencer was the only one that wasn't a part of that brain trust. And what is a brain trust? That is basically just like the team of Spider-Man writers and artists who were in control of Spider-Man during Brand New Day, and they were making up stories and bringing up ideas. They were basically creating this new like status quo for Spider-Man together. And you will see, if you ever do read Brand New Day, you will see that like every issue or every like 3 or so issues, there's a new writer and a new creative team. That's what that basically is. That would go on for years. I don't think giving all of the writers that were on the Brain Trust a run is a bad idea, but I do think you are kind of stifling the title by not giving a new creative writer, a new creator who is just like wanting to, even not even like a new creator, but like someone new who hasn't touched the character of Spider-Man. I think you are robbing like Spider-Man by not allowing someone new to take on the character, even if it is still like, you know, the way he's been. And I say that in the sense that like he's a young 20-something-year-old who doesn't know how to, you know, fix his life, and he's been doing that for 60 years. But I don't think it's a bad idea that all these writers are getting to write this character again. I think Zeb Wells is a more mature writer than he was when he did Brand New Day. I don't know about Joe Kelly. I do think, just to give an overall rating, I think 8 Deaths of Spider-Man is a really fun, really good, really harmless cosmic Spider-Man story. It's not something that I would ask for out of Spider-Man, but I mean, it's cosmic in the backdrop. The core of the story is actually very like personal, very intimate, and I really appreciate what Joe Kelly was doing. Let's just get into it. 8 Deaths of Spider-Man by Joe Kelly, Justina Ireland, Ed McGuinness, John Romita Jr., Gleb Malenkov, Cafu, Andrea Brocardo, Marcio Moniz, and Eric Arcianega. A lot of people touched this goddamn comic. This was the last 10 issues of the Zeb Wells' like volume of Spider-Man. Now, I am emphasizing that because it kind of feels like it. There's no like, oh, this is where Spider-Man is right now. It's kind of just like transitioning after issue 60. Doctor Doom has become Sorcerer Supreme. And look, the difference between this and Spider-Man Beyond is simply the fact that it is very harmless. It is like very dumb fun Spider-Man comics. If you hate this comic, I think there's just something simply wrong with you. I think it does a really good job of dealing with Spider-Man's like push and pull of, you know, wanting to care for people but also like struggling with making time for them. This has been a message in his comics for decades, but I think it's just done genuinely well. Basically, the premise of this story is that now that Doctor Doom is Sorcerer Supreme, he has to take up the jobs, the duties of what Doctor Strange was doing. And when Doctor Strange became Sorcerer Supreme, he had to make pacts and vows with certain cosmic beings so that he can use artifacts and aspects of them in his spells. So one of them is the Crimson Bands of Sitorak. And Sitorak is a cosmic being who does not move, and he has children. And essentially, Doctor Strange, in order to keep this artifact, in order to keep the Crimson Bands, he had to fight Sitorak's children every single year, defeat them in order to essentially keep this pact. Otherwise, Sitorak would take over Earth and possibly destroy it. How does that bring Spider-Man into the fold? Well, Doctor Doom doesn't want to do this. Doctor Doom feels like this task is beneath him. He comes up to Spider-Man, he's like, I have a challenge for you, I need you to be my champion. And he tricks Spider-Man into basically taking on this challenge and fighting the offsprings of Sitorak. Now that's just like kind of the premise. The real like meat and potatoes of this story is the fact that, like I said, Spider-Man is trying to balance his life between Randy Robertson, Aunt May, and Shay, his new girlfriend. He's been trying to make time for all three of them and also being Spider-Man. Now, like I said, this is a problem that he's had for decades, for literally 60 years. But I think like here, it's done really well because I think these characters know that Peter Parker isn't the best with this time. And it's more so not on these characters like nagging him really. Like they're more like, okay man, like I know you suck at time, but like when are you going to like actually get it together type of situation. They've accepted that Peter Parker isn't the best with, you know, making time for others. I think this is a lot more of Peter Parker like valuing life more. And what do I mean by that? It's called A Death to Spider-Man simply because he does die a lot. The only way that Doctor Strange was ever able to defeat the offsprings of Sitorak was by dying each time he faced one. He had to use these thing called Reeds of Ragador, which basically brought him back to life, but it was very painful. And Doctor Strange was used to it. He did it every year, obviously, but Spider-Man, he's not used to this. He's not used to losing people either, and death is a very sensitive topic to him. Like I said, the real meat and potatoes comes to like him valuing life, and this comes to a head when he faces one of the offsprings who tells him to hold an orb. This challenge was to hold this sphere that she had. He had to hold it until basically she said, you're done. And he thought it was a trick, and it absolutely was, because what he had to do was when he held this sphere, it showed him the deaths of every single person, either related to him, either people that he loved or people that he does not know. It just showed every single death ever, possible death at that. He endured more than Doctor Strange ever endured, and I mean like significantly more. Peter did his best to hold on because he understands like what would happen if he didn't, and coming out of it, he was for the worst. He started to look at life differently. He started to look at everything as bleak. He started to look at everything as insignificant. He felt that since everybody's gonna die anyway, why should I even be a champion? Why should I even try to defeat these offsprings of Sitorak? And he quit. He quit being a champion. He quit being the champion, and he basically said, if Doctor Strange, who's now like an astral projection, if Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom want to defeat the Sitorak, they have to do it themselves. So he stops, and he's just, you can see it in his face. He is just like, he's depressed. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't care to do anything. He's not even talking to Aunt May, Randy, or Shay at whatsoever. He ghosted them basically, and he just doesn't care anymore. This is a wildly significant perspective change for Peter Parker, something that only gods are really capable of doing. They're just wired to understand that all life is insignificant but also significant to the greater whole. So gods are, they see it and it's different. But for someone like Peter Parker, who doesn't take death very well, who has dealt with Aunt May dying 3 times, Gwen Stacy's father, his uncle, you know, all these people, his parents, even like all these people that have died over the years of his life, he hasn't really taken death the best. So to see the fact that no matter what, all of these people are going to die, to see it in his face, I know deep down we all know that, but to see it in his face, to actually see it happen and to see everybody just move on, I think that's what really hits him hard. Eventually you do see that Felicia helps him see that the fragility of life is what makes it special. All these people around him like really do help steer him back into where, like, it does take some time. He has a few issues, but it does take some time for him to really get it and to come back and to really just be Spider-Man again. He was very down and out. How did this whole like Sidorak thing get resolved? So basically what happened is that this thing called the Blight was coming to the realm of Sidorak, and one of Sidorak's sons decided, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to show how powerful I am, was possessed by the Blight, killed all of his siblings, and then went to Sidorak and was like, am I impressing you now? Do you see me? And Sidorak was still not impressed, and he instead went to take Earth with the Blight. And Sidorak was like, okay, it's time for me to step in. After Peter Parker was basically about to sacrifice his own life, and Sidorak came in and carried the entire burden of this by seeing how much will Spider-Man has at the end of the story, by seeing how much he values life. Sidorak came, understood, even shed a tear, I'm pretty sure, and ended up clearing the Blight from this universe. It was ridiculous. Like, it's a ridiculous story. It's like I said, it's cosmic, it's harmless, it's not necessarily like anything that I feel like anybody should hate. It's a very fun, dumb story. The notes of life being fragile is done very well. I think Joe Kelly writes that exceptionally, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if this is gonna make me read the next Amazing Spider-Man run. I will say I am going to read the first issue, and I will make a video about this at a later date, but this will basically be me reviewing Amazing Spider-Man Worldwide, the Nick Spencer run, the Zeb Wells run, and also the first issue of Joe Kelly's run. I'm going to be reading the first volumes of all 3 of those runs, and then the first issue of Joe Kelly's, and I'm going to be making a video about that. This is just basically me being like, I think I'm over Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man has always been a comfort character. I love the character. I'll always like enjoy reading him, but I think this is enough. Joe Kelly doesn't entice me. Zeb Wells did, and seeing how his run shaped, not that I hated it, but I do think it could have been significantly better. Maybe Joe Kelly's run will be a lot more inoffensive and fun, but I'm not really looking for inoffensive. I'm looking for something that's daring, and I don't think Joe Kelly will be that. He's a very good writer. I don't think he's like a bad writer or anything like that, but yeah, I think I'm good. Like, I don't know. I feel like one of the big questions I had when I read this series was, is it good enough? As in, is it good enough to recommend to people? Is it good enough for me to continue reading Spider-Man? Well, this is a message that has happened multiple times in Spider-Man comics. This is a message that I understand full well. I see how this has transpired with Peter Parker. Well, I do understand that Randy and Shay haven't seen this side of Peter Parker. While this message hasn't really gone towards them, Randy has been around a long time, but he hasn't been a really prominent like person in Spider-Man's like support system. Really, it's really just recently he has. Shay is a brand new character, and while I really like her relationship with Peter Parker, I'm gonna be quite honest, I just feel like I'm not enticed. I know the reason why a lot of people aren't is because Peter Parker and MJ aren't together, and I'm just gonna be like, quite simply, read Ultimate Spider-Man if you want to. I love Peter Parker and MJ being together, and I think that they should eventually get back together, but I want them to get back together in a fashion that makes MJ still a character. And unfortunately, a lot of times she has not been a proper character in the history of Spider-Man. She has just been this thing that Peter Parker was able to like twirl around and be like, this is my wife. There have been times here and there where she is like a prominent character in the story, like Kraven's Last Hunt, like J.M.D. Mateus's, you know, Spectacular Spider-Man, and also J. Michael Straczynski's Amazing Spider-Man. There are like moments here and there where she is just like genuinely a character, and also his wife, and also like his lover. But I think a lot of comics outside of those, like you really didn't see that. And especially Nick Spencer, I think she's actually the worst in than Nick Spencer's run. I think Joe Kelly's Amazing Spider-Man run will be a hell of a lot of fun. It looks like it's gonna be like very high octane, action packed. Pepe Larraz on art is amazing. I never would have thought they would get him on that title. Great pickup. If I read it, it's solely because of that, but outside of that, I think I'm good. I think I'm good off Spider-Man comics for at least a while. I think they just need a new editor. I think Spider-Man needs a new editor in order for the title to really be something, in order for it to be really like worthwhile, worth reading. You know, Stephen Wacker was the editor during the Brand New Day era, and I think that's a lot of the reason why Brand New Day and Big Time is great. I think the editor currently is just, he loves comics, he loves Spider-Man comics. I think you can see it by his reaction on Twitter. No hate to him, like he just seems like a guy who's happy that he's editing Spider-Man comics, and honestly I commend that. I gotta be real, but I'll be back on Spider-Man. I don't know when, but currently Amazing Spider-Man is not making me read. Spectacular Spider-Man isn't making me read. Ultimate Spider-Man is definitely not making me read it. Maybe I'm just Spider-Man'd out, but you know, it is what it is. I think for what it is, 8 Deaths of Spider-Man is a very good story. If you want to read 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, you absolutely should. I think it's a lot of fun. There are points where it does go off the rails, like the Juggernaut issues. I think that is just, it just goes a bit too much into that side, but outside of that, it's very fun. I genuinely think if you like Spider-Man, you should read it. So like, subscribe, let me know in the comment section below if you read 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, what you guys thought about it. If you are looking forward to Joe Kelly's Amazing Spider-Man run, let me know. And yeah, catch you on the next video. Peace.